football signing day press conference. Coach Pierce will have a few comments on this year's class, and then we'll open it up for questions.
First of all, I appreciate you guys being here today. We're really excited about this new group of student athletes that are joining our football program. Our coaching staff did a great job over the course of the last few months to really look at all of the kids in the recruiting area that we focus on. And we've kind of expanded our recruiting area over the years, and we're not only just focusing on Michigan, but we're also getting into the surrounding states. And that has been partly due to the university changing our policy with being able to attract students from the surrounding states for the same amount of money as an in-state tuition with using the Great Lakes Scholarship. And that really has given us the ability to expand our talent pool a little bit further out. And with doing that, when you're looking at the quality of athletes and quality of students, you know, we were really able to find the needs that we were looking for as far as athletically with real solid students. I mean, I think Rob had mentioned that in our literature that 56% of our signees actually ended up with academic scholarships, and our GPA, average GPA with this group was a 3.1. So we were able to attract good athletes that are solid high school students that, you know, it's so important for the retention in your program and trying to concentrate on that. And that has been a big plus for us. We were able to get a pretty good variety of kids. Every recruiting class we look for different athletes at all positions, and we kind of set our needs as far as looking at 3 or 4 years down the road, not necessarily next year. We're not counting on too many of these signees to help us in next fall's campaign, with the exception of a couple of the transfer type kids that are coming into our program that are actually here right now and going to be involved with spring football. So we want to open it up to any questions. Go ahead.
Coach, you made the switch to the spread offense last year. Can you talk about the players that you recruited, particularly 16 guys on offense, and whether these players kind of fit that spread offensive mold that you're trying to implement?
Yeah, a year ago we made a change with our offense. We were running a type of a spread offense, and we went a little bit different direction last spring. And creates a lot of situations where we throw the ball, a lot of screens, and throw a lot of short passing game, and don't put quite as much pressure on our quarterback to run the option as we have in the past. And as we went through this recruiting period, we really looked at, number one, we needed to build up our talent level at our wide receivers, the two outside guys that play in our offense, and we were very excited about the skill level that we were able to attract and speed level, you know, for that group. And when it came to, we used two different types of running backs. We use a guy that we call our F back, which is kind of like a fullback, you know, in most of your conventional offenses. That's a little bit more of a power runner, and we were able to attract two guys in that category that are good running or good ball carriers, but are stout enough to be able to do some of the things that we're asking for as far as blocking goes and things like that. And then we were also able to attract a couple of scat back type guys that are a little bit smaller, but when you get them out in space, you know, they'll create issues for defenses. So, you know, that's kind of what we went with our skill players. As far as our quarterback goes, we only brought in one quarterback this year on scholarship, and we have quite a competition going on right now in our football program with young quarterbacks that came into our program a year ago, and we had a transfer come in at semester time that's not really listed on this group because he decided to leave another school and walk on in our program, and he's going to add to that competition. So the only, as we looked at quarterbacks, we were looking for someone that would have the dual threat capability to be able to throw the ball well and also to be able to run the ball effectively. And we looked at a number of different quarterbacks, and the one that we settled on, he really had both of those threats, and also a tremendous student and out of the Chicago area and from Chicago Christian High School. And I mean, he's a 6'4", 200-pound man that can do what you're looking for. Kind of reminded me a little bit of C.J. Van Weeren that we had a few years back with running the football. This guy's also got a cannon, and can really throw the ball well. So, that's kind of how we kind of fit in some of our skill players. And we were able to also attract some really athletic offensive linemen.
Would you say that the offensive linemen also kind of fit the spread mold differently? Do you have different blocking schemes and more, pulling and things like that in this type of offense?
Yeah, a little bit more. We ask our interior people to be able to get out and pull, and with all the screens that we run, a guy that really did a great job for us last year that we're excited to watch him again this year is Jake Hancock. His ability to get out and strike somebody in the open field and pull and get around. And that's really kind of what we're looking for with our center and our guards. Our tackles are pretty much pass protectors, and we've got some of the big monsters with the long wingspan that can get out there and kick slide and keep defensive ends off our quarterback's back type of thing. But the interior people, we are looking for a little more of a mobile guy to be able to do those kind of things.
Can you touch a little bit more on your two transfers and how they did in their seasons last year?
Yeah, Will Frazier played at New Mexico State last year, and played in every football game for them. We actually were recruiting him a year ago to come to Ferris, and New Mexico State, talked him into going there as a walk-on, and said that he would have a real good opportunity to get a scholarship at the end of the season, and that didn't happen for him. We actually talked with their coaches and their coaching staff, and it was all positive stuff. I mean, he didn't do anything negative to leave the program. It's just that he wasn't offered a scholarship, and he was said that he had made a mistake and he should have came here to start off with, and decided to come on board with us in the spring. Started back right after Christmas time, so he's on campus right now for us. And he played in every football game for them, and rotated as a receiver. They said maybe he didn't quite have the Division I speed that they were looking for, and rather than invest in him for one more year, they were going to go a different direction. So he came on board with us. So we're kind of excited about him in the fact that he has an opportunity to go through spring football and be prepared to add to our receiver corps. The other young man is A.J. McEwen. His father, Sparky McEwen, played here at one time and has been involved with coaching at the arena level for a number of years. And AJ was looking real seriously at going to Alabama State last year. And at the tail end, that didn't come through for him, so he ended up not going anywhere and went to Grand Rapids Community College for one semester just to take some classes, and now he's transferred in here at semester time. And he played at East Grand Rapids, and they've had a tremendous amount of success as far as state championships and things like that go, and he was one of their main guys. So last year at this time when we were recruiting, he wasn't on our radar screen because of the Division I attention that he's getting, and now he's on campus right now, so that's a great thing for us.
Just looking at the defensive backs this year, the guys you recruited, what kind of qualities were you looking for in those guys?
Well, it's difficult to find corners, and that's one of the more challenging things in the course of recruiting. And this year we were very fortunate. We ended up signing 3 really solid corners out of high school that I think have the ability in the future to really help us a lot. The problem with that is, looking for a corner, you're looking for a guy that not only is a solid run support guy when you ask them to do that, but also has the ability to play man coverage. And with that, you obviously need the speed to go stride for stride with the receivers in our league. And the three of the guys that we signed as corners do have that ability, and that was exciting. Usually, we're able to find maybe 1, maybe 2 at maximum kinds of kids like that, to be able to bring in here, and we found 3 of them. And that was pretty exciting. And then sometimes if some of those guys as your corners don't fit that particular position, and as they start to get bigger and stronger in your program, then you slide them in to play safety, and it's nice to have a guy that can cover people one-on-one man coverage and also come up and support as a safety. So that's kind of where we went with that. We're always, if you were ever to go over with the amount of scholarships that you allocate to a position, in my opinion, is doing that at corners and doing that on your defensive line, because those are two of the more challenging positions to find.
Yeah, and then talking about, you said you guys were able to do a lot of recruiting, in areas like Chicago, you're getting people from California. But how important was it, to get some, home state recruits like in West Michigan?
Oh, it's great to have local talent, and I would prefer to, if you want to say, stock our football team with people that are from a closer vicinity. It's a better situation. You gain the support, from some of the local areas that can come up and watch your games. But even more important, it's the retention of student athletes. If they're within an hour or so away from home, that makes it a lot more comfortable when they go away to school for the first time. So, if we can find the student athletes in a closer area, we would prefer to do that. It was nice to be able to pick up, Heymans from the Morley Stanwood. I think he's going to be an excellent football player for us in the future. We ended up with two guys out of Greenville, and actually looking at a third guy out of Greenville that might come through as we go further in the process, and a young man from Grant, and we're in all the local high schools. We'd prefer, if we could bring kids in from, this area. But the other thing that you have to remember is that, a lot of times people say, well, how about the kids from Big Rapids? Well, actually, most kids from Big Rapids, including my son, who's not playing football, he doesn't want to go to Ferris and doesn't want to stay at home. They want to go to another university and move away from home if they could do that. And I think that's what normally you find with a lot of the local kids in that situation. But the more you can find, and we've always been able to, we have a handful of guys right now on our football team and last year's team that are anywhere from Big Rapids to Reed City to Chip Hills to Morley Stanwood and those type of schools. So I think that's a positive thing if you can do that.
Coach, you mentioned that you have Heymans listed as possibly playing on the defensive line. He played linebacker in high school. Can you talk about? Did you talk to him at all about what position he plays?
Oh yeah. I don't. I'm not into sugarcoating things, and when I meet with young people in the program, I want to make sure that they understand kind of what I see. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of our business at the Division II level, developing players, is actually trying to project where they would play. And we've had a number of football players that have come into our football program here at Ferris that end up playing a different position than what they played in high school. And we've had a number of guys like himself that came in as your linebacker or fullback type people that you see the potential of them getting bigger and gaining that the size of their body and the strength, and that using the mobility they have right now and putting them in those positions can become very dominant football players. And that's where I see him at. I really do. I think he has the ability to, rather than spend his next 5 years trying to keep his weight down and increase his speed, then you put him in a weight room and let him get bigger and stronger as he goes, and put on quality weight, and then maintain that mobility that he shows, in high school. And you've got a dominant football player, and we talked about that in a home visit, and it wasn't a shock to them. I think they kind of saw that coming down the road. But that's really what you try to do, is you try to find where a kid has the best opportunity to be dominant at your level. High school programs, they played him where they needed him, and that wasn't out of position either. I think that is a position that he could be a dominant football player at the high school level, and I would have done the same thing. But then when you start moving on to the college level and you're trying to fit where guys can really excel, down the road in 3 to 4 years, that's what you try to do.
Coach, you mentioned the two transfers at receiver. Do you see any other players or positions that, like you said, might have an immediate impact? I know you said that you didn't really think there were a lot of them or you would need a lot of them, but are there some others that kind of stand out to you?
Well, for the most part, you know, in a given year, we normally bring in about 40 new football players into our program. About half of those guys scholarship guys, and about half of those guys preferred walk-ons. And this is, I mean, it might be a little bigger class than that, but out of that group, normally we'll have about one guy out of those 40-some that will actually play as a true freshman. And that goes back over 20-some years of being involved in the program. So it's really hard for a guy coming out of high school, 17, 18 years old, to come in and compete against a guy that's been in your program for 4 to 5 years. But when it does happen, it normally happens at your skill positions. It's very rare to happen on your offensive or defensive line. The odds of that happening are about slim to none. Very rare for a linebacker, but you know, when you start looking at the guys in the past that have been able to maybe crack that lineup, and you're talking about getting into the two deep, and you know, we come into camp with 115 guys, so I mean, we're this whole group, they'll start off when they see the depth chart for the first time. That'll be the biggest shock that's hit them, and I try to prepare them for that, because you know, they're going to be fourth or fifth string, and they haven't seen fourth or fifth string in their lives. You know, they were all superstars last year, but that's just the reality of going from high school to college. I think that we have a kicker that's going to come in, and I think Victor will come in, and he'll create immediate competition with the people that we have in our football program right now. We watched him and what he could bring to the table on the high school football field, and it was very impressive, not only as a punter and as a kicker, but he's got to come in and earn a job. You know, he's got to come in and he's got to be the guy before he becomes the guy. So, you know, that is a position that, you know, I think there will be immediate competition. At the other spots, probably it'll be a little bit of a challenge for some of those guys, but you never know what happens, you know, because all of a sudden you get some injuries as you start going through the course of the season, and you know, you have to be too deep at every spot on a football field, or you're going to have problems making it through. So if some of these guys through the course of early camp can work themselves up into the top two deep, well, then we probably wouldn't redshirt them.
Coach Tuck, one more question about the number of kids you have that came from schools that went to the state playoffs, and how important that winning experience is for these kids coming in.
Well, I think it is very positive, you know, that a person comes out of a winning program, that they have that little bit of a competitive edge, you know, and have tasted it before. But, you know, on the same hand, you don't want to not recruit a person because he comes from a smaller school or from a school that maybe didn't have the success. So that's kind of, you know, do we use that as a big percentage of the formula of making a decision when we accept a kid? Number one, we want to see what he can bring to the table first as an athlete. I've been in situations before where I've seen state championship football teams that didn't have any Division II or Division I players on them, too. You know, and even the coaches would admit that they might have a half a dozen D3 guys and guys that were men on a mission that play really well together and stuff like that. But that competitive edge, you know, and that having the attitude that you're going to win and stuff like that, and sometimes that follows the individuals that you're talking about that have had that kind of success, is so critical to try to get instilled in these guys when they take on the challenge of college football. Okay?
Thanks.
Yeah.